of all of my girlfriends, I was the first to get married. I got married, had my children very happily, very, very happily. And then my other girlfriends had had a bit of a chance to have a successful job. I envied them. But as I say, suddenly life presented other things to me. And I really took the banner and I waved it like crazy, as much as to say, we women aren't only for the home, aren't only to bring up the children and look after the husband. Yes, we want to do that. But if we have the capability and we can organize it without too much disruption, then let's find out about ourselves and give to life some of our attributes as well. And it's been surprising over these years to just see what women have achieved. Look at Margaret Thatcher. I suppose I'm very proud to have created an awareness of keeping oneself fit, and particularly women. You know, all those years ago, back in 50s and 60s, if you were to go to a gym, well, I as a woman couldn't have gone to a gym. It was full of gaps, boxing, sweaty beings training for their rugby, for their football, and all the rest of it. Definitely not a place for women. But of course, we women need to keep as fit and be aware of our well-being just as much as those men. And I'm quite proud to think that perhaps that's what I have done, particularly for women. I was always trying to push the boundaries and make women particularly aware of their well-being. And suddenly I heard about HRT. This is this marvelous thing that was happening in America, hormone replacement therapy. And this was going to help us women, with many of the womanly problems, and certainly through the menopause and all those problems that men don't understand, but we women do. So I thought, well, I better find out about HRT. So to cut the story short, I then went to put myself forward as a guinea pig in the UK as somebody taking HRT. I went to a clinic and they said, well, we just need to, oh, well done, Green Goddess. Thank you very much for coming to see us because we know that you will give this some publicity. But what we just need to do is a few health checks. And I said, I'm a very healthy being. You know I am. And they said, no. We still just have to do heart, lungs, cervical, and a mammogram. And I said, no, I don't need it. They said, yes, you do. So I went through the usual procedures that we women do with a medical check. And I went away forgetting about it. Oh, I know what I did go away with. I went away with a little patch that I was to stick on me somewhere. So I thought I'd put it on my bottom. And then I thought, oh dear, shiny green leotard and tights, this little sticky patch that's going to be there for months and months is going to show through the leotard. That was a bit of a problem. Nevertheless, within 2 days, I got a call to say, we think you might have moved during the mammogram. Will you please come back? Or actually, they sent me somewhere else to have another mammogram. So I went to a hospital in London called the Royal Marsden. And I said, I've come for another mammogram. And they said, oh, yes. So I went in to see a particular gentleman. And he said, yes, we need to do this other mammogram. And then he called me back in. And I said, you're not going to tell me I've got breast cancer. He said, because you've thought this through, and because you've asked me like that, I have to tell you, you have. And what's more, you've breast cancer in both breasts. The shock was just dreadful. I was by myself. I couldn't tell anybody. I sat in my car, howled. Within a very short time, I was back in hospital. I had what's called a bilateral mastectomy, removing both of my breasts. You can imagine I'm figure conscious. I'd been a model, wealthy, not wealthy, I don't mean wealthy at all. Well-being was uppermost for me. It just shattered me and my image and my self-confidence. I was offered, and I had, immediate reconstruction. Unfortunately, it didn't really settle down too well for me, but that's another story altogether. And then within 8 weeks, I'd kept it a secret. I didn't want the press to know. I was back on air, jumping around, and it took a long time for the press to finally find out why I'd had a little break from television. But it's made me so aware of looking after your health. So I encourage all women to have a cervical smear and also to have their regular mammograms. I went through all of this. I was aged 47, and it was in 1988. Nobody spoke openly about cancer. Nobody. It was always the big C behind hands. And I have to say that from my experience, and I'd kept a diary all through this performance, which subsequently became published as a sort of autobiography, it broke that silence that had been about particularly breast cancer. My book was published in many languages, including in Russian. And suddenly people talked, women spoke about breast cancer as comfortably and as easily as they could. And I really feel that perhaps I was part of lifting the lid off of that can of worms. And I'm so lucky because from my marriage, I had these 2 sons. As I say, they're now all men. And I have 4 glorious grandchildren, 3 of whom are girls, all of whom work in the medical profession, I have to tell you. And I'd like to think that they have got the opportunity that I would love to have a fulfilling career, which also can help mankind. I look around me today and I see women who are still very feminine, but they're also very strong and very competent. Wherever you look now, in business, in sport, the women are there achieving just as much as the men. I suppose looking back over my life, I was fortunate to be asked to do the technical things that I did. I worked with Radio Bristol, first of all, very much on my own, with an enormous great machine, absolutely huge, called a ewer. And you had to take that as an interviewer wherever you went. It was mammoth at the weekend, and it was always the weekend. I used to go into Radio Bristol when there weren't too many people there. I used to take one of the studios to myself, and I used to sit there and cut and edit my tapes. Now, I've got these 2 sons, and one of them in particular is incredibly technically minded. He's gone on to make that his career. And he used to say to me, "Mom, can I come in with you?" And I used to take him in with me, and he learned some of his technology watching his mother fight her way through it. But by golly, I'm so pleased I did it. And I had one of the first computers with all of my women friends, and I just stuck at it. This is years ago now, years and years, 35, 40 years ago. And I've just learned by trial and error. But this technical learning process never stops. Just when you think you've conquered it, COVID comes along, and people say, "We want a Zoom meeting. We want a team meeting." And I think, what the devil is all of that? So I've just had to learn how to do it, which has been quite an experience and actually quite worrying, keeps me awake at night sometimes. Never in a million years would I have thought that I could have achieved what I have in the last year, in that I have produced a DVD, a Keep Fit DVD, Keep Fit and Carry On. And you know, I've done that all by myself. And it came about because the BBC, right at the beginning of COVID, came to me and said, Diana, can you do some keeping fit for people to do in their own homes? We don't need music or anything like that. Just encourage people. We didn't know COVID was going to go on for as long as it's gone on. And I had overnight to learn how to use a mobile phone, which I put, I told you before I'm a painter, which I put on my painting easel with lots of sellotape and all sorts of other stuff going on. I turned my conservatory into a bit of a gymnasium, basically, and with a very, very nice, comfortable chair, I was able to do chair exercises and other exercises. I was makeup artist, yeah. I was lighting, I was sound, I was director, I was performer, I was producer. I can't believe now that I did all that myself. And at 82, not too bad. Any woman growing up today, the world is her oyster. All the things that I would never have dreamt that women would be able to do all those years ago. Women just do manual things, technical things, artistic things. It is extraordinary. Just set your mind to it and don't let anybody put you off. Determination can get you everywhere. And I realize now in my 80s how fortunate I am to have looked after my health. And I suppose that's my final word that I'd say to everybody. Never take your good health for granted. Look after your health. Eat well. Keep active, mentally and physically. And as the years go by, it pays off. You see, age is just a number. In fact, age is mind over matter. And if you don't mind, it doesn't matter.